Hi there, welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those who don't know who are new to the channel, welcome. I'm glad to have you here. My name is Anita Adefuye. This is the most dynamic YouTube channel you'll ever find. I am the founder of Advanced Non-Fulfilled Coaching Company, and I help racialized professionals in Canada advance their careers, establish their identities, and live overall fulfilled lives. I'm also the author of Reve-Healed. Revealed is a true story of my personal journey around child sexual abuse, mental health, suicide, depression, and how God brought me out on the other side. And closely related to that is a blogging platform that I have founded called Loud Silences, where I seek to undo the culture of silence. And my team and I put out a blog post every Wednesday. Be sure to catch it. Join our mailing list so that you always know when we have new content available. It's a very enriching platform. There are so many things, I do so many hats that I wear, quite frankly. I couldn't cover them in one YouTube video and an intro. So I would like to jump into today without much ado. For those who have been with me, thank you so much for watching my videos, for sharing my videos, for liking, for commenting, for engaging. I appreciate you. God bless you so much. Happy Father's Day to all fathers out there, to all men who are looking to be fathers someday, soon enough. And I really pray with all my heart that you'll come into that place. I have no doubt it is a joyful place to be, at least watching my husband do it. We have two lovely kids. And yeah, it is such a blessing to really have them in our lives. So I would like to talk about Father's Day in line with today. Today's Father's Day. And for those who know me and have been around me long enough, you know that I don't have a father of mine anymore, which is sad. But um I won't consider myself fatherless. Okay. And that's a huge blessing. I don't have my biological father. However, I do not consider myself fatherless. God is my father, and there is no better person to have as a father. I know. I see a lot of you claiming and saying God is also my father. Well, it's different when you don't have a biological father and then God is your father. And then I have men in my life who have been such a blessing. Special shout out to my father-in-law and my uncle. My uncle, y'all, if you know and see my uncle Faye Franklin, please give him a hug, give him a high five, take him to the Bahamas. I always say that he is the Mordecai to my Esther. And it's been such a blessing to have a father like that in my life. And of course, in a not so weird or awkward way, my husband's my father too. Don't ask me to explain that one. But anyway, I'm not fatherless. That's what I'm trying to say. And for those who have also been following me, especially if you have read my book, you know stories about my father. You've heard stories about my father and how he molested me. But today, I want to shift the conversation from that because, believe it or not, hard as it might be for some people to really understand this, if you're wondering, if you're new to the channel and you're wondering why is she scratching her eyes, my eyes are itchy. I got really long lashes, and I do not edit my videos because the last time I tried to edit videos before they go out, I went 1 year without YouTubing, and there's so much on my heart I want to say. So, yes, my eyelashes are long, people. It's a blessing and just annoying sometimes. Okay, people are looking for it. I thank God for it. All right, so yes, I want to share with you today 7 lessons that I learned from my father. You guys, my father was, I want to maybe even help you guys know my father a little bit. All right. My father was one of those fathers that, if we take away all the pieces that you know and you've read in my book, just for a moment, forget all that. My father was the kind of father everybody wanted as a teenager. Trust me, you wanted that kind of dad as a teenager. You know how kids never think their parents are cool? Believe you me, I have never seen a cooler parent than my dad. Sorry, mom. They're both dead, so don't worry. My mom is not going to see this and be like, oh my gosh, she has a lot as much as a daddy. No. And even if she did, she knows already. Anyway, I played too much. Yeah, so my father was the kind of father you wanted to have as a teenager. He was very cool, y'all. He was very cool. And I really enjoyed that. I remember when I first went to live with my dad, I was 11 years old. And one of the first things he told me was, "Don't call me daddy." Okay. And quite frankly, by the time I became, I started getting older and started maturing and, you know, getting into more womanhood, I started hating his young boy looks and, because people sometimes thought he was just my older brother, like a big brother, which was annoying. Anyway, but um my father had also learned lessons from his own life that I just want to share with you. Okay, did I say seven things? Okay, yes, they really are seven things that I want to share with you. They really are seven things that I want to share with you. So, of these seven things, quite frankly, I would encourage every parent, all right? Quite frankly, there's a lot for everybody to learn. And I will share seven stories with you and tell you what I learned, what he taught me in that, okay? And I have themed them up, so have no fear. So number one, let's jump in. Let's jump in. I'm excited for this one today. Let's jump in. Finances, guys. So one day, first of all, I knew my father as a person who literally every morning before he leaves the house, excuse me, every morning before he leaves the house, he will count how much cash he's going to take out. He had his budget set for the year, he had his budget set for the month, he had his budget set for the week and for the day. So every day he will take out the cash of money that he needed for the day, and then he will go out. And when he comes back, he had this notebook. He would literally write everything he spent and how much change was left. And then he had this change box where he would just put all the changes there, and that's where he'll leave them. And if y'all think I'm lying, find my brother and ask him, my older brother, not my younger one, my older brother. And then he'll put his change box in there. Okay, he'll put his change box in there. This thing might quickly get into more than seven. And he'll put his change into his change box. And every day he did that. Now, that's one piece. One other time, and then every time we want to get anything for ourselves, he'll tell us to write out a list of things we wanted and estimate how much it was going to cost us. And if you come back and told him, okay, it's going to cost me 10K naira. For those who don't know, yeah, there's a whole exchange rate thing, but 10,000 naira then was a lot of money. So if it was going to cost you 10,000 naira, you tell him, and he'll give you 10,000 naira. His expectation is that when you come back, you write what you no, he'll give you maybe like 15,000 naira. His expectation is that when you get back, you'll take your estimates and put your actuals and then give him back his change. If you do not give him back his change, you are in trouble. Let me tell you that story quickly on that one. So one time he sent me to go buy something, and then I got there, a friend of mine, they were not all that, okay financially. So I was like, oh yeah, keep the change. It was literally like 10 naira, 5 naira. And I went back home and my father told me, asked me, where's my change? And I said, well, I gave it to them as a tip. He was like, tip? Do you work? Did you earn that money? You cannot tip somebody else with another person's money. He sent me back to go and get his change. And when I came back, he said, get this and get it clearly. He said only a poor mindset person would give tips to somebody else from someone else's money, because what are you trying to prove to them, that you have and they don't? Is that what you're trying to prove? And I'm like, that's not what I'm trying to prove. But here's the thing, the lesson I learned that day, and even from all of these things, really was that you can, you was one, budgeting. Two, um, you know, learning how not to shine on people's money, because there are people who, they have somebody else's money with them and then they go and shine. And financial discipline overall, that's in fact the long and short is financial discipline. Now, did I learn all of that? Not really, because my father also realized that it wasn't sinking in. You guys, there was a period of our lives. Our father pretended we were broke and poor, and then made us eat things that we typically would be like, ew, until I personally, especially because I was the only girl and I was really spoiled. Yeah, it's weird. I know I was spoiled, but also, you know, and my father pretended we were poor and didn't have as much until I became comfortable with just what I had. And then I remember one time I was that girl, that child that you'll buy me Christmas clothes, you'll buy me Boxing Day clothes, you'll buy me Christmas Eve clothes, New Year clothes, Easter clothes, Good Friday clothes, birthday, let's not even go there. I was that child. And then I remember um one Christmas, my dad was like, "Oh, you guys, I forgot. I didn't get you your Christmas clothes." And I was like, it's okay. I actually have this, you know, material that I got as a birthday gift that I haven't sewn into like a dress. I can use that, and maybe, do you think you have money to just give me to maybe pay for, I can just go to the seamstress down the street to just do something for me to wear. My dad looked at me, I was like, okay, someone has lent. And then he took us shopping, and I was like, "Man, I thought we're broke." It was like, "No, we're not. We never were. I never will be." It took a while, but I got it. I got it, and I learned the financial discipline that I needed to learn. So that is one lesson number one. Do you teach your children financial discipline? Do you teach them financial planning? Do you teach them financial management and things like that? One thing we always tell our kids, they know the things we'll buy them on a regular and the things we'll buy every now and then. They know the years they're going to have a birthday party or not. And all of these things will typically work with them to tell them, look, this is in the budget, this is not. In the at age as age appropriate as possible, teach them what they need to know. I need to run because my time is really running ahead. Number two, helping others. So there was this family friend of ours. There was this family friend of ours that my father, their house burnt down once. And I remember at the time we were building our own house, our own home. Yeah, in Nigeria you build. You just buy a piece of land, build a house, you don't take mortgages. You actually, at the point where your home is complete, oftentimes you're not owing anything on the money. It's a lot of capital ask from individuals, but at least, and most people, even the poorest of the poor, the people that in the Western world, they say they're poor, they live on less than $1 per day. They actually own their own homes and they're not paying mortgages. So just throwing that one in there. Anyway, and we were building our own home. And I remember this family friend of his, their house burnt down and they were renting and they were trying to build theirs and moving as well. You guys, my father paused our building. I mean, it wasn't the only reason why he paused ours, but he kind of paused our building. First, we moved in. He just quickly finished the segment of it where we could move in and then complete the part that we were really going to live in because there were rentals attached to it as well. And then he used that money to finish up the house for these people, clear off their debts with the landlords, and also foot the hospital bills. I'd seen my father help people pay school fees. Like, I can't count how many people's school fees he had paid, but that particular one, for some reason, really hit different. Maybe because I went to the hospital and I saw the family, some of their kids were really burnt in the fire and they were going through treatment. But I really learned a lot from him about helping people. Quite frankly, my family is a family that is we literally practice open door policy. Even my own home, I remember telling my husband, look, everything we have is never ours alone. Because people will go in and out of our houses. I will feed people. We buy food. I might give them away the next day. Like that's how I grew up. And I saw my dad also lean into that and leave that out. And it's something that, if you think, to God's glory, quite frankly, but if you think there's anything you've ever benefited in terms of, having lived under my roof or see me just cook you food for no reason, trust me, I didn't just pick that up on my own. I learned that from my father. I learned that from my family. And I'm really grateful to that. So that's something that I wanted to share. Number two. And even in that, as fathers, the question is, how do you model giving to your children? Okay. And giving is not always in finances only. Okay. Give your time, give everything you have. Yeah. Okay. Number three, business. This one is closely tied to finances, but business. So when I finished high school, or as we call it in Nigeria, secondary school, I remember I wanted to work because I just wanted to earn money and I was eager to just have some form of experience. And I went to my dad and I said I wanted to work. Can you find me a job? And he was like, you won't get anything that makes sense. You're always home. Why don't you go and sit down and think about something you can do that would earn you money and you can do it on your own time? And I remember at the time, I liked making Zobo drinks. Laura's Delight, I see you by the way, y'all. Laura's Delight's got the best Zobo drink ever. or as we know it in the Western world, hibiscus tea, whatever. It's zobo to us in Nigeria. Anyway, yeah, Rims drinks, rubies. I forget. I will find it and put it in the description box. Go get it. Anyway, so yeah, I remember always doing that at home just for us to drink. It was just a healthier option from, from pop and all the others. And I used to make like very specialized ones for my dad because of his health at the time. And one day he looked at me and he said, "You make such great Zobo drink." And I was like, "I do." And that was when I got the idea. And so I put out a list. Remember, my father likes us working with lists, and then you estimate. I had learned that. So I estimated what I was going to need if I wanted to just make a first batch to sell. And I figured we had this huge deep freezer that was just sitting home doing nothing. We had two huge generators. Yes, because power is not constant. I'm trying to really help my Canadian friends. Okay, power is not constant in Nigeria, and so people typically would have generators, and we had two generators, and it could power the freezer. And so I figured nobody really, we only sometimes just turn it on, just to prove to others that, we have small change. And I figured I can sell Zobo and it would never go bad because we would always have generators to turn it on. And because my dad worked at the refining company, was an engineer, sometimes like we really get like gas fuel on very discounted prices. So I figured, yeah, I really had everything going for me. And so I put my estimates and then I went to my dad and I said, "Can you give me money to go buy this thing so I can start my Zobo business?" And he was like, I will loan you the money. I will loan you the money. Dude, he loaned me that money. I will never forget 850 naira. And he said, "When are you going to pay back?" We signed an agreement on when I was going to pay him back. Can you imagine that? So when people say, "Well, the first time I did business, I didn't have a lot. I had $1 million." No, I did not have $1 million. It was 815 naira. And then in today's world, that's like less than $2 actually. And then I started this business. And I think we agreed I was going to give him back like in a month or so. And within the first batch of Zobo I sold, I made like 1,500 naira. And so I was like, yeah, I can give him back his money. And I still had some of my ingredients left. So I used the second batch to make fresh sets. And then I sold them again. Like I was selling them off within days. And I figured that we're in such prime location, our home, like they'll come to my home to buy. We're in such prime location that students, a lot of school students, typically just walk back and forth. So I put signs up on major parts of the street and said, "Buy your Zobo," and I put the address and I told them to just, give them directions to my house. And people were coming constantly. Now my father was happy because guess what? That also always kept me at home. Parents. Anyway, see, I told you he was a man full of wisdom. So anyway, so yeah, I was selling my Zobo and I was making good money. But guess what? At this point, I don't think I had fully learned all the financial management skills from my dad because I could not account for that money half the time. And I mean, some of my personal things, like, of course, I was living with my father, and typically I'll get money for things like my menstrual cycle pads and whatnot. Things like that, I started getting them on my own, so which was a plus. Anyway, so yeah, my father made me do that. And I remember now even coming here to Canada and thinking about, and funny thing, true story, after my father passed and I finished university and there was no job coming forth, guess what I used to survive? Selling Zobo. I will make my Zobo overnight, put them in the freezer, take them to a friend's mom's shop in the morning, drop them off on my way out, and then I'll sell. They'll help me sell. And on my way back, I'll pick up my money, give them something out of it. And then the change of it is what I'll use for transport the next day and then buy up again. Like that was how I was living until I got a job, you guys. Until I got a job. Anyway, no, I will not sell Zobo. Laura's delights they go and buy from her. But here's one thing I will tell you though is that um in itself, it taught me business because before you know it, I started selling different flavors. And I realized adults didn't like sugar. So I started sharing the one I was making for my dad. I would share that and, with them and say, "Hey, I can do this recipe for you. If you're looking for something more healthy, if you're sick and you want something very specific, I can make it for you." And then I'll tell them when you take it home, bring it out from the freezer and then just warm it up a little bit. And then you can take it as hot tea. And I sold, you guys. I sold. I started selling water blocks for people who are going to the market who needed ice blocks. I was balling, you guys. So my father taught me that. Question for you: what ideas are your kids having that you are shutting down? Look, I really say this is about Father's Day, really, because my father taught me these things, but mothers can learn too. What ideas do your kids have? Do you shut them down or do you encourage them? Do you nudge your children to really think outside the box? They might surprise you if you support them. All right. And as you're doing that, make sure that you're infusing life lessons and life moments for them. Okay. I don't even know what number we're in now, but yeah, I think that was number three. Number four, teaching the why. Oh, when I first went to live with my dad, I think the next morning there was something I was supposed to do and I didn't do, and then this man called me, sat me down. I was expecting to be spanked, beat, blue, black, purple, pink, every color and shade in this world, because that was what I was used to, where I was coming from. Every error, every mistake, I will get the beating of my life. And so I was expecting, so I was already, and I was used to it, like, yeah, yeah, whatever, and I was expecting him to beat me. And then this man just sat me down and said, sit down, and said, you're not a small child. I mean, you're still a child, but not that little. So, and I think you're a very smart person, right? I said, yeah. And he asked me a question. What is initiative? I was like, wait, what? What? And he said, yeah, I can tell you to go in the dictionary and look it up, but I'll tell you this. And he said, initiative is doing the right thing at the right time without being told. And he said, do you think you did the right thing in this instance? And I said, no. And he said, why do you think so? And I mentioned it. I can't remember what it was, you guys. But I didn't forget the lesson. And he said, what would you do differently next time? And we actually chatted about it. And he treated me in some ways like an adult. Look, I'll tell you this: if you have a teenager, teenagers want respect and love, but they also want discipline. I work with teenagers, and I can tell you that, on one hand, the child in them still wants you to call them to order when they're wrong. At the same time, the adults they are becoming wants you to be able to respect them and the individuals that they are, their uniqueness. So you always have to find that sweet balance between the two. I will tell you that. And of course, those two things should be on the foundation of unconditional love. Your children should never question for a second if you love them or not. Once they do, you've opened up a door to the enemy. And any such door that is open in anybody's life, I pray them closed in Jesus' name. So, and typically, I found out that his general discipline style was to help you have a conversation with him to understand the why behind the things you're doing. So, for instance, my father would never tell you, have a boyfriend, don't have a boyfriend. He's not interested. His own style, he will call you and sit you down and say, I will teach you the things. If you go and have, here's what sex means. If you go and have it, here are the consequences. And if you go and find yourself in the consequences, here's what will happen to you. Here's what I can do and what I cannot do. And after that point, you're on your own. So even for you, when you're now going out and doing whatever, you're thinking to yourself that, okay, I don't want to disappoint this man. I don't want to disappoint myself. And you know, one thing I learned in that, it helped us to learn how to make the right decisions on our own. And so I had this, anyway, I can't speak for my brothers, you guys. When you see them, ask them. But for me, I got into this frame of mind where I would always ask myself questions around the actions I'm about to take. And I would reflect on the actions I already took. I'm not perfect. I'm not saying I do that all the time, but that's what it started making me do at that age. All right. So, um, anyway, so yeah, it helped us. He would set his expectations. He will teach you the thing. He will tell you why, and he'll tell you his preference. And then he'll tell you why that is his preference, right? And then he'll trust you to make the decision. But he won't make the decision for you. I mean, there are things that, of course, he will put his foot down. This is it. End of story. No questions asked. But you know what that did? That when he got to those points where it was a put my foot down, no questions asked, we couldn't fight it. And we barely could ever disobey it. And here's why, for me, I learned that the hard way to not disobey it. So one time, for him, again, he wasn't the kind of father that would say, don't hang out with this person, don't hang out with that person. So my dad came and told me specifically about a boy and said, I don't want to see you around this boy. Okay. you know. And then, and this is it. So if you're a young person watching this, in fact, for anybody, mind the company you keep. And so my father told me, I don't want to stay around this boy. I didn't say anything wrong with the boy. I mean, there was nothing going on. So whatever. So of course, one of those days, another friend of mine said, hey, this dude wants to hang out with you. I think he likes you, yada yada, let's go hang out with them. And I'm like, but my dad want me categorically not to hang out with this boy anymore. And she's like, how would your dad know? Like, just tell him, you're coming to my house, or tell him you're going to there's this other friend of mine. If I tell my dad I'm going to our house, it's like a free pass. He would ask no questions. He trusted our family and all that. So I said I was going to that my friend's house. Remember, at this point, there was no Snapchat, there was no WhatsApp, there was no Facebook, there was no TikTok, there was nothing to communicate with. You read the room of the parents you're dealing with to know the answer you should be giving to that parent on behalf of your friend. And so, yeah, and she was supposed to be at home that day. We talked. She was supposed to be at home that day. And so I snuck out with this other friend of mine to go see this boy. And then my dad was home, and then my friend was passing by and she stopped by. And my dad was like, hey, come, let me say hi to you. And she went, I was like, ah. My daughter said she was coming to your house. Did you see her at your house? I was like, no. And she was like, yeah, maybe she came more. Maybe I missed her. And my father was like, okay, thank you very much. You can go. And then now here's the thing. If that was all that even happened, I could have wiggled my way out of that. But here's where it got really bad. On my way back, on my way back, I stopped over at this my friend's house to tell her, hey, just in case my dad ever asks you about today, here's actually like, I already saw him. You should have come to my place first. I was like, okay, well, I'll wiggle my way out. That's fine. But anyway, just in case whatever happens, we missed each other on the way. She was like, okay, cool, I got you. Yeah, good, good. All good. And then I left. And then on my way back, I was still with this boy and this other friend of mine and some other people too. And as we're coming back, very close to my house, I was almost at the end. This guy had his hand on my waist. And then if you grew up in Nigeria, you know this feeling. When you hear the horn, and I heard the horn, pim, pim. When you know your father's horn. I heard that horn, people. Oh, it felt like rapture happened and I was left behind, God forbid. But anyway, it felt like rapture happened and I was left behind. I was like, dude, get your hands off of my waist. My father, the car was still moving. My father came down, and before it happened, before I could say Jack Robinson, I was up in the air on the floor. Before I could land, I was trying to grab the floor for support. I was back up in the air. They call it brushing. I grew up in Warri, so they call it brushing. He brushed me. Jesus, he brushed me. Sorry. You brushed me is pidgin for you brushed me. I don't know. Somebody interpret that. Oh God, people, that was, and I lost my father's trust to make the right decisions when it comes to friendships and saying I'm going one place and then go somewhere else. I felt so ashamed. I felt like, oh my God, I have really just, lost trust. But anyway, I learned the lesson. I rebuilt trust with him, and I did everything to regain that trust, but um, after that point, I think it really sunk in what it means when someone gives you the power to make those decisions and but you know why I couldn't even fault his reaction and all the punishments that followed was because from the get go, he had explained his expectations. He had told me his preferences. He had given me options and left the decision in my hands and told me what consequences for any of those were going to be. So it was clear. Now, the teenager in me that thinks that is an adult understood the implication of my decisions perfectly. So when the punishment was coming, it also made sense. I don't know if that helps someone. What I'm trying to say is this: know when to switch your parenting tactics with your children and find what works. Now, the same way he was dealing with me was not the same way he was. My brother didn't tell my father thoughts about any of those things. However, he knew how to deal with him. Let him do his own YouTube video to tell people what that is. I will not speak for him on this one. But our dealings with our dad was a little bit different because we're different human beings. And the things he trusted my brother to do were different from the things he trusted me to do. Because again, we're different people, right? But there were things that were very general to both of us, and you just could not do. It was clear. Anyway, so and that goes without saying that of course, he tried to also really always understand where our minds were on things. I know. Yeah. Okay. I don't even know what number we're on, but I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you the next one. So the next one is um making academic and career choice. Oh, people, this one, I bless my father every single day for it. I bless him, bless him, bless him, bless him. Growing up, and if you know me, you probably would be surprised if you hear I'm not a lawyer. Growing up, everybody thought, oh my gosh, she's a lawyer. She will be a lawyer. She da lawyer, la da da, barrister, lawyer. All I heard was lawyer, lawyer. And then there's the other piece where every Nigerian parent, they say want their children to be doctors. That's not exactly true. But anyway, in certain age, it was true. Now, my father's parents wanted him to be doctors. That's what he told us. I don't know. I wasn't there. But somehow someone intervened and said his strong suit is definitely not that. And he switched to engineering. I adored my father so much. I wanted to be like him in so many ways. Like I'm that child that my father felt like a god to me. I wanted to be him in every way. And so I started saying I was going to study engineering. My father said, okay, we'll see what happens. And then, but everybody wanted to be a lawyer. So I also kind of had that at the back of my mind that, okay, maybe I'll do law. I don't know. We'll see what happens. And then my father's parents decided to switch, some of their wishes of he didn't make it for the court of medicine, and they thought, well, your daughter is very brilliant. She'll be the doctor you never became. And he was like, nope, nobody's going to do that. So I know my children. Now, I want to also tell you this. My father was not the kind of father that when he come back from school at the end of the term, he's looking at her and going, oh, you didn't come first. Why didn't you come first? Da, 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 da. Now, here's the thing. Remember, I said he dealt differently with my siblings and I. With me, he probably will look at it and be like, your overall average point is low. Why is that? With my brother, he won't do that. My brother is intelligent, but he's not like a school book in-depth person. He's not. That's not him. And he'll tell you that himself. My older brother, I mean. My younger brother, on the other hand, that guy is a genius who just probably doesn't even realize he's a genius. Right? But my older brother was not the school bookworm type. I was just kind of like a nice balance between the two of them. One is extremely brilliant. One is a one is extremely brilliant and loves school work and whatever. One is not so much of a school person, and I was just there. And so my older brother would, you know, um, would get encouragements, appropriate to what he could do. And so he knew where we were, academically speaking, and he knew how to speak to each of us. And if you fell short of the expectation based on what your strength is, that's when you hear the talk. And the talk really is not even a how did you know? It's more of a oh, what happened this term? Last time you did better. What happened this term? I noticed your science is lower than previous terms. What's going on? Da da da. And if need be, he'll get us private tutors. That's the kind of father I had. So you see, it took all the pressure from us, but instead we wanted to perform better. I don't know, it's weird, I know. Anyway, but it worked. Whatever that was, it worked. Okay, again, know your child, all right? Anyway, and so when it came to, we're getting to that point, in Nigeria growing up, you typically will get to the point where you have to take a decision on art class, science class, or commercials. I was at that point and I couldn't decide because I didn't know where I wanted to go. And so my dad talked to the school and said, can she just continue to take all the subjects if she's okay with that? And then she can decide as she gets to learn more. I knew right off the bat, I hated biology, still do. I didn't like economics. I mean, I wasn't bad at it. Biology, I hated and I was terrible at it. Economics, I was okay. I hated accounting and was also terrible at it. Economics was okay. you know but I still couldn't figure it out. Now this is going to help a lot of people if you're a student and you're struggling and you don't even know where you want to go, and maybe parents work with your kids on this. What my father did, he literally went through all the way, and my father was good at record keeping. He went as far back as my elementary school, so primary school, and he brought out all my results for every term. He had everything. And up to that moment where we were. And then we started looking. What were we looking for? Consistency. We found out that, and here's why I think I struggled a little bit. So I also wanted to be an engineer. Here's why I struggled a little bit making a decision was I was also good at pretty much every subject. Like I was that A B kind of student. Biology, I'll get a C. And one time I got an F and I cried like my life ended because I got an F. And my dad and I went through, he helped me go through every result I had. And we started seeing that, yes, I was always having A's and B's, but the B's were usually mostly in very specific subjects. When it comes to literature, it was always an A, and not just an A like when you hit 80 A, it was like the 90s A. Government, I was great. English, I was great. Um, what else? Religious studies, like there were just a couple pieces here and there. I was great. Um, Social studies, those were like the high ranking ones for me. And my father looked at all of that with me. And, my physics, chemistry, biology, let's not go there. But physics, chemistry was generally okay. Like there were A's and B's in there, but it was always just up and down. And then I remember I wanted to be an engineer. And then my art, anything I had to do with drawing, zero. Like, not like I got zero, no, don't get me wrong. But yeah, I struggled with those ones. And then the reason I didn't even like biology was apparently because of all the drawings and labeling. So you see, what your child needs, it's typically in there. You watch for consistencies in their lives, where they're struggling, where they're great. Now it doesn't mean that because they're struggling in an area doesn't mean that they're not cut off for that area. This is where being led by God really would help you. However, it could be a pointer to something. So always, start there if you need to. All right. If you need to start there, it's a good starting point. Because by the time we were done and we looked at everything, it felt like I should still be in arts. And it felt like the next reasonable thing was go study law. What else is there? And I remember looking at everything and saying, and then my father was like, I don't know if you're engineering material, but if that's what you want to study, go for it. If you can start, and if you don't like it, we can always switch you into a different department at school. Cool. That took off the pressure again. And the more I thought about it, and I started looking, and then he said, I'll give you some of my engineering books, go read. And I started reading, and I was like, this thing is boring, so abstract, it's so this. And he was like, yep, you're not that type. Never mind. And then he gave me a book I will never forget, World Politics and the World Wars or something. I can't remember the title, but it was about the world wars and it was about world politics and it was about globalization and whatnot. And I did not drop this book. You guys, I was in SS3, which is like grade 12, and I was glued to this book. Like I was reading it. I even studied it more than I studied for my YEC, you know. And my father would sometimes be reading the book and he would just be smiling and walking past, like, okay, okay. And then I was like, there has to be a course where I can study these kinds of things. I want to be in the UN. I want to do this. I started reading up about Henry Kissinger. I started learning and reading up about Condoleezza Rice. I was reading about Kofi Annan. I was reading about the United Nations, Westphalia treaties, all of those things. And my father said, okay, let's look through the JAM brochure because at this point I needed to also just pick something I wanted to write for JAM. And we looked at JAM brochure and I was looking through some things in the arts area to look at what I wanted to apply for university. And we came across something called international relations, and I was like, "What is that? What is that?" And he started explaining. I was like, "That is this book." And I remember somebody there mentioning that sometimes I've been an international relations practitioner. I was like, "That's what I want to be. I want to be in the UN. I want to be United Nations Secretary General." And things just started pouring out, and that was where I found my love, you guys. And guess what? I went to school. I studied international relations, and I worked, and I had a dream to work with the Nigerian Foreign Affairs. And I did that. I did that, you guys. All because a father paid attention. Question for you. Where do your kids' strengths lie and where are their weaknesses? And how can you or how are you nudging them in that direction? This is going to be a long one, you guys. Sorry. All right. So that was that. Okay. Again, I don't even know what number we're in, but next one. Next one is this is the heavy one. And this is the part that really ties into my book. All right. And that's that. Fathers are humans, they're not perfect. You know, I look at my children sometimes and there's a tiny bit of envy in my heart towards them and anybody whose father was really present in their lives. First of all, I didn't live and grow up with my father. For the long and I knew him when I was a kid, but I thought it was my uncle. So I always called him Uncle Dane till the time of his death. I never called him daddy because yes, he was my father biologically, but I knew him as uncle. I used to think I was the last born of my grandparents. And so he wasn't really there in my formative years. He wasn't there in my grown up years. I lived with him when I was 11 years old. And even then, because he lived like a bachelor, he still wasn't as fully present as he should have been. And then we all know the stories around the molestations when they started. They started when I was 13 years old. And that continued until he died when I was 16. Some of these things I'm sharing with you today were happening concurrently with the times I was being molested by him. So you understand, and if you read my book, you would notice when I talk about the love hate feel for someone who abuses you, especially when there's somebody who is close to you. That's where that comes from. Because how can somebody who I adore this much also hurt me that much? But I have forgiven him. But one thing I have learned is we're all humans and fathers are not exempted. Look, there are a lot of people who are mad at their parents for whatever reasons. And I get it. Jeez, you guys, I get it. I get it. But can I shock you that if you ask me, would I have preferred to have my father alive and he continued abusing me? Or did I feel relieved that he died and I'd rather have him dead? I'd pick the former. I would still pick the former. Because as much as, and the crazy thing is, while he was alive, there were times that I prayed to God to say, make him stop or kill me or kill him. Like somebody has to go. I can't continue like this. And when he died, for like a split second, I felt relief. And then immediately after, I felt like I was naked, like I was exposed. And I never felt covered for the longest time until the day I gave my life to God. So I want to speak to someone today who has experienced parental hurt. Please, however you can. I'm not saying go and, be 5 and 6 again with them, but settle it in your heart and then with your God to forgive them. Set boundaries if you need to, but find a way, please, to start working at that relationship. I beg of you. Look, I know people that have really been hurt by their parents. They say that, when you tell them things like, if they pass, you will regret it. They'd be like, nope. They were never really there. So why would this be any different? If they're dead, they're dead. God forbid, when they're dead, you will know that you don't mean that. Or you would weep. You would weep for them. You would weep for them being gone. You would weep for that feeling of, I don't have. Because there's a certain covering parents give, especially fathers. And then you would weep for their lack of, their absence. And then you will weep for the things you did not do with them. I blocked my mom before she passed. I didn't want to have anything to do with her anymore. And when she passed, I probably wept more for the things I didn't get to do and or say because I was hurting from the things I thought she did. So, fathers are not infallible. The only father, yeah, fathers are fallible. The only father who is infallible is God. Is God your father? Do you need to repair things with your earthly father? If things are not smooth, I encourage you, please go ahead and fix it. And that will bring me into the final one. I don't even want to know what we're in, but let's just pretend and say it's number 7 or 8. All right. Final one. My father sort of kind of, laid a spiritual foundation for me. I say this one and I'm laughing because It's complicated. So first of all, I grew up in a home where we actually had a church in our house. And then when I went to live with my auntie, she was I don't know what they call it in an Anglican church anymore. My family's Anglican, but she was kind of like a big deal in the Anglican church. And then, so of course, we had to go to church every Sunday. So there were those foundations. But when I went to live with my father, you know how I said there were some of those things that he would put his foot down. My father wasn't going to church when we were living with him, but he would chase us out of the house every Sunday morning to go to church. And he didn't practice Christianity anymore at this point. If you read my book, you know that I mentioned that at some point he was a self-acclaimed atheist, and then at another point he was a Christianer, and then at another point he was a Kanka, like he was all sorts of things. But then he would chase us out to church every Sunday morning and would never take us with him to those temples he would typically go to. That always bugged me. Like I always just used to wonder, what is up with this man? And he wanted to make sure that we actually went to church every Sunday. So when we get back, he'll ask us what we learned and we'd have to preach to him. Of course, we did not always go to church, Tony. Our business is outside now. We did not always go to church. And some of my friends might see this and be like, yeah, my own parents are still alive. Don't tell them what we used to do. But we didn't always go to church. We would sneak out with friends. And then when we're coming back, we would either find some of our friends to ask them what they learned, and then we'll um, go into the Bible passages and come up with our own sermons, or we'll just, gather together and just quickly say, okay, pick a Bible verse, and then we'll agree to say, if he asks us, here's our Bible verse. And we typically don't go home at the same time. Like, we'll probably go hang out with friends before we go back home. I like to get home before I go out again, because I usually don't like going out in my church clothes. And my brother didn't mind, but I would typically get home first. So when I go home, my dad would be like, so what you learn at church today? And then I liked hanging out with my dad. I actually liked hanging out with my dad. And then I'll be like, yeah, today, the Bible verse was Matthew 7:7. Ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be opened to you. And then I'll preach this beautiful sermon. And then my brother will come and then be like, what did you learn today? I'm like, yeah, Matthew 7:7. And then he'll just. Now, a number of things were happening at this time. Um, on one hand, I always wondered, why does he push us to this? But then he does this. Now, the adults in me, I think, figured it out. And here's my theory. He probably thought at the time he was far deep in whatever he was to come out. And he realized his errors, and he didn't want us to be trapped in that same place as he was. Because remember, whatever this religion was or whatever he was doing, whatever the heck was going on, somehow in there he was convinced he needed to do what he was doing to me to survive. And he didn't want us to be in that path. That's number one. Number two, he knew the truth. He knew the truth, but maybe just was struggling in his own way to come to terms with that truth. And here's how I also know that he knew the truth, because on his deathbed, the last thing my father said to me, he couldn't speak for a couple days before he passed. And then the day before he passed, he regained consciousness. I was the only one with him. And his words to me were, I'm sorry for all I did to you. And I just want you to know, I think I may have led you guys on a wrong path. Especially you. Remember I said I always wanted to be like my dad. So I think he saw right through me, because in my head I was like, once I leave this house and I go to university, I'm finding the nearest Hare Krishna temple, I'm joining them. I wanted to do all the things it was doing. My dad used to do, like soul travel, astral travel, all those things. I wanted to be able to do all those things. Like it felt like power, and I wanted to do it. And I think I was looking, and sometimes he would catch me with reading some of his incantation books. Yes, you guys, he had incantation books. Sometimes he'll catch me reading some of them, and he'll be like, nah, nah, nah. If you choose when you become an adult that is what you want to do, at that point, I'll give it to you. But until then, no, go to your Bible. So, look, let me tell you this. If somebody who was not spiritual, well, he was spiritual, but just not the kind of spiritual that made the most sense for me. But if somebody who was not on the right side of the spiritual understood enough to channel his own children to the right side of spiritual, man, people wake up. God is real. Jesus is real. And Jesus is the real deal. Anyway, and then he would, and then what he said to me was, I may have led you on this path, and I'm sorry. He said, look, forget everything you think I've told you and you've seen me do. God is real. I always said Jesus is the greatest master of all. I don't think Jesus was a master. I think Jesus was the life. And he said, find Jesus. He didn't say find God. He said, find Jesus and hold on. Or maybe he said, find God. I can't remember. But he said, find it in my book. Go and read it. He said, find God and hold on to him no matter what. And I was like, okay, yeah, yeah, whatever. If there is that God. And then I remember, and that was when I said, okay, well, if that God is there, then kill my father. Of course, the night after he died. And what was the first thing that happened? Yeah, this God is not real. But that's story for another day. But here's where I'm going. Somehow, because years later, I remember that phrase, find God and hold him. And when I was going to give my life to God, and I was in this place where I just couldn't do life anymore, all that kept coming back to me were those last words. And I remember crying out to God to say, God, I have said this before. If you're there, save my father. And you didn't. And I'm saying it to you again. I want to end my life. But if you're there, please, I need you to show up for me. I need you to be my father. And I remember praying that prayer. And you guys, if you've read my blog, and I think I'm going to be talking about this very soon because I want to talk about something on faith and whatnot, and just what my journey looked like into the faith, into the Christian faith. And I remember after I said that was when the next morning all the things that happened, and that's how my suicidal plans were averted. And since then, I have stumbled, I have fallen, I have done all of those things, I've even strayed. But you guys, I'm not letting go. So, fathers, I want to speak to you a little bit. We're not, we're in this world and we also what's going on. There's an attack on fatherhood, man. If you don't know that by now, and you're a man, please know it. There's an attack on identity overall. There's an attack on just the general, the natural makeup of humans that God has created. There's an attack on that. There's an attack on family as we know it, as God intended it. Mother, father, or father, mother. And the truth is, as a man, when God says that you're the head of your home, think about what that means. When a person is brain dead, where is the brain located in the brain? In the head. When the person is brain dead, even though all other parts may or may not still be there, fully available, they're not as functional as they can be. Why? The head is gone. There is a place, there's a reason why, typically we talk about incarceration of men and high numbers around that. And we all talk about it, we take like jokes. Oh, this person has daddy issues. We think those things are jokes. They're not. They're real. Why do we say those things? Because when you take away one piece of what makes a whole, you will always create what? A vacuum. When a person grows up without their father and without him being there and being present, that's why I said that sometimes I look at my kids and I envy them, because it's one thing to have a father, it's another thing to have a present father. I just want to celebrate my husband so much because thank you for being a very present father and being a good example. Because you see, all these things that I talked about, I see my children learning them. They're learning them from their father. They're learning them from me. And together, when we come, it only validates and solidifies the values we're instilling. I just want to pray for every father this moment that God will restore your sanctity. God will restore you to your rightful place as head. That in every way that you're questioning, wondering because of the things that are happening in our world today, because of the places and the things, maybe there's a challenge. Maybe there is a challenge with finding the job or finding the right job. Or maybe there's a challenge with not even having anything. And it's like, am I failing because I can't provide the things that I want to be able to provide for my family, or I can't really do the things that I want to do? I just want to pray for you that God will meet you right where you are. and that God will show you what to do, and that He will strengthen you, and that He will restore you. He will restore your dignity. I don't know who's struggling with their dignity as men, but God will restore you. And I pray nothing but His peace to wash over you. And for everyone who has, struggles or issues with their fathers, I just pray for healing over you. God, you healed me of the pains that my own father caused. I pray for everyone that there'll be healing today in the name of Jesus. And that every attack on the person of the man, that it will cease in their lives. Rise up to who God has called you to be. In Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you so much. If you stayed this far, man, God bless you. Because, yeah, this was a long one, you guys. I wasn't planning to have it long, but anyway, I hope you watch and I hope you enjoyed. I'd love to hear from you. And I look forward to, you know, I don't know what I'm looking forward to right now. I look forward to seeing my children continue to grow with their father in their lives. And I just pray to all fathers who are present and active. I pray for strength for you to continue to do so and be there for your family. Look, family is beautiful. It's good. And shout out to single moms today, because I know you'll feel it on Mother's Day. Special shout out to single dads. And on a day like this, special shout out to single moms who have to play both roles. You know, growing up with my dad, he was a single parent to us, and my mom was a single parent to my younger brothers. You know, it wasn't the best. It wasn't the best. Seeing my children grow up with both of us present now, some days I look back and I'm like, whoa, this is all I missed. But I'm grateful to God that He's allowed us to give them that. And that's brings gladness to my heart. So um yeah, so happy Father's Day. Which of these lessons and stories really resonated the most with you? I would love to hear them. Remember, you are your children's role model. They come to you on blank slates, as blank slates. What is the story you're writing on them? We're stewards. We're not really owners of them. We're stewards, and God would ask us what we did as fathers, as mothers, as spiritual leaders over them. Because when I talk about children, I'm not just even talking about biological children only. God would ask us questions. May we please our Father in heaven. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and take your daddies out and have fun. Thank you, and bye.